Mr. Boma and Mrs. Ivie Ogbonda appeared as a happy married couple to the public. But inside their home, their affair was rocky. They had three children. Boma and Ivie Ogbonda were based in Lagos. They were wealthy. Boma was a successful business consultant and a contractor who controlled and oversaw several businesses for himself and other business owners, while his wife, Ivy, was the general manager of a big government company. Money was never an issue. But the main problem was that the fire of intimacy had died a long time ago. And whose fault was that? Evie's. While Boma was very romantic and caring, Evie was the opposite. She hardly allowed him to have sex with her until their bedroom affairs faded off. Later, Evie vacated their matrimonial bedroom and moved to a separate single bedroom. She claimed that she needed utmost privacy. She stopped cooking for him and stopped attending to his needs as his wife. She handed everything over to their housemaid to do. Even on the weekends when she used to cook for him before, she just stopped. If Boma tried to seduce her to have sex, Ivy would push him away. She dedicated her entire time and energy to work. Boma was the definition of a perfect gentleman, every woman's dream. He was good looking, rich, generous, and loving. He loved Ivy from the bottom of his heart, and he never failed to show it. His children loved him to stupor. For Ivy, she loved Boma too, and she couldn't point out what he did wrong. But she just suddenly lost interest in intimacy, romance, and being a wife. Her career took her top priority. Even most times, she would overstay in her office to work. Sex was the last thing on her mind. Despite Boma's tight schedule, he always returned home latest by 8 p.m. every day. But for Ivy, she sometimes came home late into the night, mostly midnight. At other times, Ivy would sleep in the office and traveled for business trips from there. These trips often lasted for weeks, even months. She would have reached her destination before she called Boma or any of the children to tell them not to expect her back home for that day or in the next few days to come. Boma had arranged many romantic getaways for both of them, but Eve stood him up in almost all of them. She detested kissing, public display affection, or anything that would take her time away from work. She just wanted to be left alone. Not even her children could convince her to change for the better. But in all of this, Boma was still faithful to their marital vows. He never for once cheated on Eve since they got married. But for years, this went on until Boma almost lost his mind. When he was on the verge of depression, he decided to share his struggles with his friend, Dennis. Boma and Dennis had been friends for over 10 years. Dennis was also married with two children. He owned an online sports company called Bet Nation, a term he coined out from his name, Dennis. The company provided sports betting updates and sports celebrity insights, interviews, and information. Dennis, please, my friend, help me, please. I'm dying slowly. My friend, help me. Boma said mournfully. He told Dennis everything. When he was done, Dennis didn't waste time in hitting the nail on the head. Guy, my guy, you are close to your grave. You are close to your grave, oh, Dennis said. What? Oh, Boma asked. Dennis laughed and said, "Ha ha ha! You will die soon if you don't do something about this. Prostate cancer is knocking on your door." Boma was shocked to hear this. He screamed in agitation. God forbid! Ha! Bro, please. Ha! Help me! What do I do? Dennis suggested that Boma should get himself a side chick who would always satisfy his needs. Without hesitation, Boma agreed willingly. But he said since he wasn't promiscuous, he didn't know how to start. Dennis promised to help him get one very soon. Dennis reached out to a curvy, beautiful woman, Janet. Janet was in her late 20s. She was a single mother of one son. She worked as a private school teacher at Surulere, and she lived alone with her son in a self-contained apartment. With the help of Dennis, Boma and Janet met. Soon after, they started dating. Boma felt like a newborn baby once he hooked up with Janet. She was everything that Ivy was not, and even more. When it came to sex, Janet was top-notch. Her homekeeping and caring skills were unmatched. Within 1 month of being with Janet, Boma had transformed from a sad-looking man to a jovial man. He was always smiling, and even sometimes whistled to himself unconsciously whenever he remembered all the crazy things that Janet was doing to him. Janet became his fort and his refuge, but he looked forward to meeting her every day. He started keeping late nights and even slept over at her place a few days in a week. He stopped disturbing Evie for sex and affection at home because gradually he had started losing interest in her. Janet ensured to spoil him steady with food, sex, affection, and everything he could think of. In return, he showed gratitude to her by spending heavily on her needs. He rented a big three-bedroom flat for her in a highbrow area of Lagos. Not done yet, he ordered her to resign from her teaching job that paid paltry salary. Then he opened a big boutique for her. On her birthday, he surprised her with a nice car. Janet was all over the moon. Their relationship soon evolved from transactional to deep-rooted love. Both soon fell in love with each other and swore not to let go. Evie's busy lifestyle blinded her to the changes in Boma for some months. But after his new character of coming home late, sleeping outside the house for days with the excuse of having several official meetings, and how he had stopped begging her for copulation and attention, Evie couldn't help but feel concerned. Yes, she waved it off as one of those things. She was even happy that he had finally accepted her as who she was, and she could now live her life as she pleased without being reminded of having a husband who was in need. Her job was her life, and nothing could change that. This went on for almost 1 year, and soon Boma and Evie adapted to their new lifestyles. One day, Evie attended a Christian women conference for both married and singles. The event was organized by the Women's Association of her church. The venue was inside the large auditorium at Victoria Island. The guest speaker was Dr. Pastor Agnes Aguche, a popular life coach, a female pastor, and a marriage counselor. Our message centered on how and why wives should make their husbands happy at home. Wives, my fellow women in Christ, hallelujah! Pay attention to your husbands.
Glory!
Give them enough time. Make
Hallelujah!
them happy. Be romantic to them. Glory, play with them. Massage them. Cook for them. Hmm, my sisters, the devil is real and he is busy breaking up marriages. Many men are dying in silence because
Yes,
you,
yes.
yes,
Mm,
you,
mm.
even you, their wives, you have abandoned your husbands totally. Hey, 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 you are falling into the traps of the devil. Most men are married bachelors. Ah, all because
Glory!
all of you here in this auditorium, you have
Hallelujah!
refused to perform your duties. Tell me, tell me, tell me, Glory, tell me. When was the last time you took your husband out and spoiled him? Don't always expect them to be the ones to spoil you. You too can do it. You too
Yes,
should spoil
yes.
them.
Mm,
Spoil them.
mm.
Glory. Hallelujah. Somebody. Pastor Aguche said when women neglect their husbands, their men would cheat and lose interest in their marriages. Don't let those Jezebels roam in the streets to break your homes. Women, work out your marriages.
Glory!
I said, work out your marriages.
Hallelujah!
Pastor Aguchi emphasized. The message touched Evie so much that she felt very guilty when she realized how much she must have hurt Boma. She made up her mind to change, but not immediately. Then something occurred to her. It was around the end of the year, and Valentine's Day was just a few months to go. So Eve picked February 14th the following year as a special day when she would surprise her husband and she would turn a new leaf. It would be difficult, but she was determined to repair her marriage. In another part of the city, Dennis was pacing restlessly in his room, angry and deep in thought. This whore is a betrayer, but I won't let her rest. No, I won't. I won't let her rest until she gives me what rightfully belongs to me, he swore in his mind. When he was tired of thinking, he picked up his phone and called someone. The person from the other end picked up, and the following conversation commenced. Hello? A lady responded. Are you at home? Dennis barked angrily. Yes. The other person responded reluctantly. Good. I'm coming over right now. An hour later, Dennis was at Jeanette's house, accusing her of trying to sly him. The truth of the matter was that when Dennis matched Janet with Boma, it wasn't with good intentions. He did it as a form of business transaction. Behind the scene, there is a flashback. Janet and Dennis once had a history together. Before Dennis got married, he had a steaming affair with Janet that almost led to marriage. Dennis was a chronic womanizer who slept with anything in skirts, and he also possessed other bad characteristics. This led to their breakup, and both of them went their separate ways. He got married to another woman barely 3 years later, and he started a family. But he continued to have several side chicks even outside his marriage. Regardless, he and Janet remained just friends with benefits. They had sex as often as they could manage, but there was no more strings attached to their relationship. Along the line, Janet got pregnant for another man who refused to marry her, so she lived alone as a single mother with her son. She later stopped the occasional sex between her and Dennis, yet they stayed in touch and he assisted her financially anytime he felt like. Dennis was financially buoyant, but Boma was far richer than him. Dennis wanted to get money from Boma, but he knew that without any valid reason, he couldn't get the money. He didn't have a genuine love for Boma, he was only eyeing his friend's money. When Boma confided in him about his marital problems, Dennis seized the opportunity to siphon his friend's wealth. He set up Janet for Boma. He told Janet to be Boma's side chick and suck his bank dry. The arrangement was that for every amount she got from Boma, Dennis and her would share it 50-50. She must credit Dennis every time Boma gifted her money. Janet gladly accepted the deal because she needed the money so bad to cater for her child. Her baby daddy was nowhere to be found, so she was footing the bills all by herself and by any means possible. The deal went on smoothly for some time between Janet and Dennis. She continued to send Dennis's shares to him from the loot from time to time. However, when she fell deeply in love with Boma and she enjoyed countless shopping sprees, expensive gifts, and numerous monetary benefits, she sidelined Dennis. She felt bad for having an ulterior motives towards Boma because he didn't deserve it. He was too perfect and too good to be treated like that. Afraid to spoil her relationship with Boma, Janet didn't confess to him about her initial plans with Dennis. She also kept it away from Dennis when she changed her mind about the dubious plans to dupe Boma. She just went with the flow. But Dennis had had enough and he needed to sort things out as soon as possible. He confronted Janet about the sudden change in plans without his consent. She fired back by defending her actions, calling it true love. She called him a bad friend and advised him to stop stabbing his friend Boma in the back. Furiously, Dennis threatened and still begged her to continue the business while still enjoying Boma's body and money all to herself. But Janet refused to cooperate any longer. Dennis, please stop. Stop. Just stop. Ah, I can't do this anymore. I can't. I'm sorry. I love Boma too much. Too much. I can't continue to deceive him. But you have your own money too now. Dennis, why? Why are you greedy? Be contented and also more to get to where Boma is today. Stop hiding his money all the time, she said stubbornly. Dennis felt defeated and left her house dejectedly. When he got back to his house, he hatched another plan. Evie was busy preparing for a surprise Valentine's Day romantic getaway for Boma. She made up her mind to reconcile with him and rekindle their dead intimacy. The couple now lived in the same house like co-tenants who kept to themselves. The only thing that always forced them to interact once in a while was when the house upkeep and the children's welfare package were concerned. Every other thing was now an individual business. Eve realized that it was all her fault, but she was not ready to change the system until February 14th the following year. It would be a great day for just Boma and herself. She was sure that Boma would forgive her because he was too soft to be mad at her for so long. However, his recent indifference in their home had started to bother her. She thought he was just tired of chasing her, and he had decided to accept her for who she was. It didn't occur to her that he was cheating on her. She knew that Boma was a principled man who would never descend so low. She was not the type to pry into his phone or any private items. She minded her business and didn't think along that direction at all. Dennis reached out to her one day and pleaded for a secret meeting with her. He begged her not to tell Boma about it. She was worried because it was unusual of Dennis to request a private meeting with her. Although she knew him as Boma's friend, she and Dennis didn't have a cordial relationship. Not that they detested each other, just that their paths hardly crossed in those days. Nevertheless, she obliged, and the two of them met at a discreet eatery far away from the house. Dennis begged her to keep whatever he wanted to tell her a secret. When she agreed, Dennis divulged all the sensitive information concerning Boma and Janet's illicit affair to her, with evidence that were too difficult to debunk. But he didn't tell Evie that he was the person who introduced Boma to adultery and even hooked him up with a side chick, Janet. He didn't even mention that he knew Janet from anywhere. Evie was shattered. and she got angry. She raved and wept and threatened to deal with Boma. But Dennis managed to calm her down. He advised her against confronting Boma directly. Such an action would only fuel his infidelity even more. So what do I do? What do I do now? I can't I can't just sit back and watch him do this to me and the children. No, no, I can't. What do I do? Evie argued. Dennis told her what he had in mind. He advised her to cheat too. After all, two can play the game. Evie asked him where would she get a boyfriend since she had not done such a thing before. Besides, she was too principled to sleep with another man aside Boma, her husband. Dennis told her that he would act as her boyfriend, but the point was to fake it and make Evie happy. It was a good way to get back at Boma, but he warned Evie to also keep the affair a secret from Boma. Evie asked him about his own marriage. Dennis told her not to worry, that their affair would not affect his own marriage. She was so confused that she told him she would think about it and get back to him. Dennis assured her that she won't regret it and she could always opt out from it if it didn't work out for her. She thought about it for some days, while her hatred for Boma grew. She also blamed herself for pushing him outside to cheat, but she still blamed him more for his lack of self-control. Her anger towards him increased so much that she agreed to Dennis's plan. If adultery was the order of the day, so be it. She would also join the train. But all the while, she aided to Dennis's advice to keep pretending to Boma as if she didn't know anything. She acted like all was well and normal between them. Not even the children suspected anything. Moreover, Boma was hardly at home in those days, as he buried himself in work and of course Janet's succulent embrace. So whether Ivy put up attitude or not, he didn't see it and he didn't care. This hurt Ivy so deeply that she felt useless. Dennis was elated when Ivy accepted his proposition. He and Ivy started dating secretly and they met in unknown places after work once in a week. Later, when their chemistry sparked, they increased it to 3 times a week. Dennis was a good company. He made her laugh and free her mind from the fog of worries that had beclouded her. She opened up to him on many things about her marriage to Boma. She thought he had good intentions for her. What she didn't know, however, was that Dennis was only after her body and her family money. Janet's allegiance to Boma was a slap to his face. He regarded Janet as his property, or one of his girlfriends. It felt like Boma snatched his toy and ATM. He decided he would pay back by being with Evie in return. Although Janet seemed to have taken over Boma's entire brain, Dennis knew that Boma still cherished his wife and family deeply. Dennis wanted to hurt Boma so bad. He also wanted to make money from Evie since Boma's financial pipe has blocked. Whatever he could siphon from Evie would do. Sometimes he would ask Evie for money and she would always give it to him. She never had any problem with that. He tried many times to have sex with Evie, but she didn't give in. She only allowed him to have foreplays and make-out sessions with her. They kissed, touched, cuddled, and did other naughty erotic things. But whenever he tried to get down to the main business, she would push him off and begged him to spare her that private part. No matter how mad she was with Boma, she could never bring herself to having the actual sex with another man while still married to Boma. Valentine was fast approaching. Many people started planning special events and outings to mark the day for themselves and their loved ones. Janet and Boma were not left out. The Valentine's Day for the year was on a Friday, so both of them planned to spend the entire weekend in a private resort somewhere in Ikoyi. They would leave for the resort on Thursday evening. Boma decided to lie to Ivy that he had a business trip to Port Harcourt during the Valentine's period from Friday the 14th to Sunday the 16th. To avoid the late hour rush where people would have filled up the relaxation resort, Boma and Janet quickly booked an apartment inside the resort ahead of February 14th. Attached to the apartment were all the modern facilities such as a swimming pool, a gym room, a game room, a luxurious private kitchen, a modern bathroom, and all the modern technology one could think of. They also shopped for many things that they would take along on the romantic trip. Janet took her son to her mother's house, where he would stay till she returned from the romantic trip on Sunday evening. Everything was looking good. Boma didn't keep anything from Dennis. He kept his friend updated on his activities with Janet, all because he trusted Dennis. Janet couldn't bring herself to warn Boma about Dennis because she didn't want to be exposed as a business partner in crime. She had hoped that if she kept her mouth shut and feigned ignorance about who Dennis was, Dennis would also do the same. Dennis informed Ivy about what Boma and a side chick, Janet, were planning for February 14th. Ivy vowed to storm the resort that day and spoil their trip, but Dennis advised her against it. No, that's a foolish move, sweetie. You can't do that, no, he cautioned her. Dennis suggested that he and Evie should also go for a Valentine's Day weekend getaway in a different location and also enjoy themselves. Evie reluctantly agreed because she wasn't comfortable with the idea in the first place. She would have preferred to visit the resort where Boma would spend time with his sluts and tear them to pieces. But Dennis knew better, and so far so good. Most of his advices had been effective. Evie could still trust him and his decisions. Dennis booked a five-star hotel for 2 days for himself and Evie. Evie agreed to foot the bills Friday to Saturday. A day before the Valentine's Day, February 13th, Boma and Janet arrived at the resort in high spirits. They lodged into their apartment. But early the next morning, the resort management suddenly changed plans when a group of powerful people in the government and influential dignitaries from three foreign countries stormed the resort for an emergency meeting. All rooms and apartments were booked to the brim, including the one rented by Boma and Janet. The money paid for the special VIP lodging treatment was 3 times higher than the regular fees for all apartments and lodgings. The resort management pleaded with all the affected lodgers to look for alternatives, and their money was refunded in full, with extra changes to make up for the disappointment. The lodgers protested, but they couldn't do anything about it. One of the managers at the resort, who used to know Boma before that day, called him aside and suggested another hotel to Boma and Janet. Reluctantly, they packed up their luggage and drove to the other hotel that the manager had recommended. They arrived at the hotel around 1 p.m. and went to book a room at the reception. There, a shocker awaits them. A couple holding hands and showing PDA to each other walked in on them from upstairs where the rooms were located. Boma came face to face with Evie and Bernice. Everyone became stiff. The shock they felt was indescribable. Oh, Evie! Boma screamed. Boma! Evie and Dennis exclaimed in unison. Boma had always shared his updates with Dennis regarding his affairs with Janet, But when the resort suddenly sent him and the other lodgers out of the facility, Boma was too disorganized and couldn't think of calling his friend Dennis to inform him of the unexpected change. Coincidentally, the resort manager had recommended the same hotel where Dennis and Ivy had lodged into on the other side of the city. Dennis didn't know why Boma and Janet would be at the same hotel when their planned location was at the resort at Ikoyi. Their encounter escalated to the point that everywhere became noisy. When it turned out too chaotic, the hotel management was forced to order the two embattled couples to leave the premises. Boma left with Janet for her house, while Evie and Bernice went back to their separate homes. Back at Janet's place, she was crying and couldn't keep her secret to Boma anymore. She told him about Dennis's involvement in the whole shady affair. It was too much for Boma to swallow. For 2 days, accusations and counter-accusations flew among the four embattled individuals. Secret and dark plots of deception, treachery, and cruelty unfolded. Boma returned home to Ivy 2 days later after the incident at the hotel, and the two of them got into a hot verbal fight. During the altercation, Ivy exposed Dennis as the brain behind her infidelity, Boma's extramarital affairs, and all the intricate details about Boma and Dennis. Boma told her that this same Dennis was the intermediary between him and a side chick. He connected Evie's version of the story to what Janet had told him about Dennis, and he realized how thick Dennis's web of lies have entangled him for more than 1 year. He cut all ties with Dennis and threatened to arrest him if he ever came close to his family or Janet again. Next, Evie accepted all her fault in all the matter, and she also broke up with Dennis when she got to know that he had used her and Boma for his selfish interest. She told her husband to break up with Janet and come back home. She was fully ready to work out her marriage and restore her home. She pleaded for Boma's forgiveness. Boma had forgiven Evie, but he couldn't forget the deep hurt and the dire consequences of her actions. Janet was already part of his life, and letting her go was nearly impossible. He told Evie that he would keep Janet. Evie flared up and demanded that they go for therapy. Boma didn't argue. The marriage therapist urged Boma to stop cheating on Evie since she had repented and also stopped her adultery. The counselor also blamed Boma for losing control over his libido by dating another woman outside his marital confines. Boma was sad and filled with guilt, coupled with how Evie continued to weep and beg him to stop seeing Janet, at least for their children's sake. He finally agreed to break up with Janet and go back home. But Janet almost skinned him alive when he broke the news to her. What? Boma, no. Boma, no, no. I will kill myself if you leave me. Boma, no. Boma, you must be joking, right? You're joking, right? Boma, just put a gun to my head or stab me in the chest instead. Boma, no. No, Boma, no, you can't leave me. I can't be alive without you. No. That bastard Dennis might have done everything wrong and evil, but bringing you to me was the best thing he or anyone else has ever done for me, Boma. Boma was moved with emotions. He tried his best to make her see reasons. He even offered to continue footing abuse for life, especially for her son's education up to the university level. Janet could keep the multi-million naira provision store and the car and everything he had gifted her, but she should let him go back to his wife. Then Janet dropped the bombshell. I'm pregnant for you, Boma! She screamed and rushed inside her room. When she returned, she held out the pregnancy test for him. He confirmed her pregnancy claims. Janet said that she had been feeling the slight symptoms of pregnancy for a while before Valentine's Day, but she was not sure about it yet. She had planned to go for a pregnancy test after their planned Valentine's Day getaway at the resort. Unfortunately, after everything crumbled, she decided to go for the test 2 days before Boma showed up at her doorstep to break up with her. When the results came out positive, she was waiting for the right time to tell him. Now, he dared showed up at her doorstep to tell her that it's over. No, she must let him know that he had planted a seed inside of her. Boma was devastated. He informed Evie, his wife, but Evie demanded that Janet must terminate the pregnancy. Janet refused to abort the pregnancy. Evie insisted that Janet should abort it, but no way, Janet stood her ground. Bomar's love for Janet had grown so strong that he became extremely confused about what to do. Her pregnancy even solidified his affection for her. He knew that he was responsible for the pregnancy because Janet was not promiscuous. He had confirmed that several times. He loved his wife and children so much, but leaving Janet would break him to pieces. She was the one who lifted him up when he was down. On the other hand, Evie would not share her husband with the side chick anymore. Divorce was not an option because it's against their belief and religion. Besides, Evie would not be able to bear the shame of losing her husband to another woman. She couldn't imagine herself as a divorcee. If the world had given Boma a choice to make, he would have left Evie and married Janet. But this would have broken his children so bad. They would not be able to bear the pain of a broken home caused by their parents. Boma found himself in the middle of two women who wanted him to themselves alone. What would you advise this couple in this situation? If you were Evie, what would you do? If you were Boma, how would you handle the dilemma? If you were Janet, would you be willing to let go of a married man as sweet and as loving as Boma? Kindly drop your answers in the comment section. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone! Then Ultimate Stories love you all. Ciao!